Good old boys.
Mark.
Bog beef.
Fredo.
Still got it?
Never lost it.
Blah, 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 blah. Politics, blah, 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 blah. Republicans, Democrats, blah, 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 blah. Those 7 seats in the blah, blah, blah. 8:29.
Not 10 minutes past the hour.
Yeah, traffic and weather coming at the top of the hour.
We should, well, I guess we're on too late at night. Like, it would actually be dope if we did at the top of every hour do traffic, just for random places.
We got Beatus and Beaver coming at you at 8 o'clock in the morning, the drive. Yeah. Oh, man. I don't know if we want to do too much bullshitting beforehand. Not a lot going on. I mean, in terms of, so every single time I drive my truck somewhere, I get like 2 to 3 compliments. Today, someone's literally said, "That's the best truck I've ever seen." I was like,
that's high praise, man. That's,
I was like, calm down,
no
man.
joke.
Yeah. I can't decide whether or not to get a toolbox, because like, I would imagine, like, if you went to a car show, it would, like, you wouldn't, like, if I'm looking at that in my truck in a magazine, I don't want to see it with a toolbox. I want to see how it came from the factory. Which, by the way, I don't watch much TV, but when I watch TV, I'll watch, I already said it, the Cowboy Channel and Motor Trend. And last episode, they have these shows where they fix up cars and stuff. Man, this dude took in this, they said, yeah, we're fixing up this 72 Barracuda. I was like, oh, that's my favorite car. Let's see if they can get it going, back to showroom. And they put in like these giant sound system, lowered it, neon lights and stuff like that. And like, I have been sick ever since. I remember watching, I was thinking like, this better not be a white guy. This better not be a white guy. Yeah, this effing boomer, like 70 years old. It's like, I need these giant subwoofer. Like, what the fuck are you? Sorry, what are you doing? It looks retarded.
I don't like that stuff either. The thing with, like, I'm not even like the purest of purists, right? Resto mods can be okay, but they have to stick to the spirit of the original era. You know what I mean? Like, if you have a 57 Chevy and when you're cruising, you want, I'm just going to throw this out there, you want satellite radio. They actually make head units that have satellite radio that look period appropriate. If you want to put that in and keep your original head unit, keep it aside, whatever. Like, I'm totally cool with that. But lowered neon, weird, giant rims, I hate that too on old cars. I mean, old cars just had smaller rims. That's how things were back then. That kind of stuff I don't like.
So like a 57 Chevy back then, did cars come with cigarette lighters?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of times multiple.
Yeah, okay. So if you have a 57 Chevy and you want to listen to your music in it, you go on Amazon.com and you get you one of those Bluetooth radio things that'll.
That's what I do.
That's what I do in my car too. And then you can just go on your FM radio, boom, tune it to the, and you can listen to like. And if you're in a 57 Chevy, you should be like riding around listening to like, bop music, right? You should be listening to that. You should be listening to like the old R&B tunes and stuff. You know what I mean? You don't need to be rolling up in the 57 Chevy and listening to like techno. That would be wrong.
See,
don't you think?
They're like, okay, the part of this is like, okay, if you jig up a car, like there's like a scale here. Okay, so
sorry, if you what?
If you like, first off, like, it depends. Like, if you're going to do a 69 Camaro, well, that's bad. But like, if you do like a SS with numbers matching and stuff like that, you're an arsler. Like something is seriously wrong. Like, you can do like a Nova, I guess. They made a billion Novas, and you could get one for like 10 grand, and you could put all the S on there. But it's just unbelievable, man. And you know, what happened with we've already done this before with the Pimp My Ride stuff. And there's been articles about this afterwards that all those people that took their vehicles on Pimp My Ride, those cars were worthless afterwards. They look so tacky, like as soon as the moment passes. And I mean, they look tacky then, but I guess some people didn't think so. But just thinking, what is the hell is wrong with you, man? I remember like the other day, I was driving my truck, which is bone stock. There's nothing done to it. It looks like it's got the hubcaps on it. It looks like you bought it in Ford in 1986. And it does, like I said, people say that's the best looking truck I've ever seen. It's just like Ford made. The thing is, you don't improve it by dicking with it. The other day, I was driving down the road and I passed by a dude in a mid 80s box Chevy, short bed standard cab. That's a very nice truck to have. That's an awesome truck. And it was slammed to the ground with big ass rims. White guy. White as a carton of milk. And
not good.
I remember I looked at him and he looked at me, and there had to have been a moment where he thought in his head, like, why did I do this to my truck? Like this looks like shit. And I did like Ford, you know, they had really smart guys. Think about how much combined, or Chevy in his case, think how much combined IQ went into making that truck and making it just right. And, you know, you roofer is like, no, I'm gonna fix this shit up, dog. No, it looks stupid. But I think, like, I looked at him, he looked at me, and I think at that moment he might have had a breakthrough.
Here's the one thing I am okay with, and I'm curious to see if you agree with me on this, Bog Beef. If you buy I don't know, let's say you bought like a V6 Chevelle, right? And you tear the engine out, you put like, you know, a bored out 383 on it, you repaint it, and you change the badging to SS badging. Like, it's not an original SS, but you upgraded it in a period appropriate way to an SS. I'm okay with that.
Here's things that are fine. Okay, first off, if you start out with something that was wrecked, do whatever you want. You know, you're having to do it all custom, whatever. If you have something rare, numbers matching and stuff like that, and you want something bizarre, just sell it to someone who will keep that car like it's supposed to be. Okay. I mean, so by the way, this also goes for the gun market. Everyone is surely people have been trained by the Forgotten Weapons channel. He makes sure to tell people, you don't make a like a Carcano cooler by putting a carbon fiber stock on it. You ruin it.
Sir, let me tell you, and I might have told you this already, but the everybody needs to hear it. And I won't name and shame, but members of my family, there was a dispute over an antique firearm. And the antique firearm was a 1940 Luger made in the Mauser factory. And one of my family members, after it was inherited, wanted to sell it and buy a quote unquote 9mm that's easier to load because this one's too hard to load. I wanted to sell it and buy like a Glock or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
My like comparable thing to this is like, you know, we've talked about it on the show before. Like, I know how to do charcoal bluing. I've gotten pretty good at it, metal refinishing, all that sort of stuff. But there are certain things that like I won't do that to, even though like I think I do a pretty damn good job at this point from doing it. I'll give you an example. From the CMP, I have a 1911 that was used in World War II. I don't mess with that, right? Like, I'm not gonna like
hell yeah.
Like, I'm not going to refinish a pistol like that. On the other hand, like if I buy something that was a commercial pistol, like that's the big difference, right? If this was a commercially sold pistol, and that I will, like if the finish on that is beat up, I'm going to strip it, I'm going to polish it, I'm going to re-blue it because I enjoy having something really beautiful. I do it in a period appropriate way, right? So it try to make it look as close as possible as I can what it looked like when it rolled off the factory floor. And, you know, most of the stuff I have mid-century. So 1950s, 1960s, most of the time in my case. But like, you don't do that to like, you know, the best example I have is that 1911 from World War II.
Yeah. You're getting some robot voice.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's the greatest sin. And if you watch gun YouTubers, did you see that? Did you see that Garand thumb video where he shot like a Garand that Post Malone, the music guy, you know, with the face tattoos. He took a tanker Garand, which is like basically a shorter version of it, and he made it tactical, right? He put all kinds of optics and redid everything, so it's like basically a new weapon now. And that's kind of a sin, right? You can't do that to a Garand. You can't imagine taking a Garand and you like fitting it with like like making it black and putting a reflex sight on it and shit like that. You just can't do that. It ain't right.
No, well, I mean, if you want that, which by the way, the Italians made the BM-59, which is a Garand with box magazines.
There you go.
Do that, and they sold it on the market. So, I mean, there's a philosophical thing because part of it. So, like with the Luger thing, the Luger is the collector pistol, and the thing about remember when you own a Luger, you're just and Jay Leno's good at explaining this. There's a lot of people when they have really exquisite collections, they get to understand this because they're like,
it's not yours. It's just your turn.
Yes. It's like dating a stripper. Someone else is going to have this one day. You're just taking care of Cheyenne for a while. And so, your job is to, not let her get any tattoos. Well, anyways, I'm not going to break off of that, but, yeah, your job is just to take care of it for the future. And I mean, remember, this depends. There's a scale, right? So a lot of it depends on how many of them are out there. So that mid 60s Mustang, I mean, they made a lot of those. I mean, they made a lot of them. You're not really gonna do anything wrong if you messed up stuff with that. The other thing with the cars, I mean, the way I feel about it is if you have something that's not super rare, not numbers matching and stuff like that, and you start doing stuff to it, what you can do is we started out with the resto mod, and the resto mod was I'm gonna keep it I'm not gonna put neons and spinners on it, but I'm going to put modern stuff on it. We need to advance to the next level. And because by the way, these things are getting rare. I mean, in the 80s, muscle cars and these kinds of things were free. You could just go buy a 68 Charger for $3,500 and they would chop the hell out of it, put two of them together.
High school kids would drive them around.
Yeah, it was no problem. But we don't live in that world. As these things get rare, the resto mod guys, which by the way, I'm talking about Joe Rogan too. He's chopped up a 68, 63 Corvette at this point. Now he's done another one and he's resto mod them. It was no, we need to get to the point now where, okay, I understand that you don't want to get broke down or deal with carburetors or whatever. You need to do drivable mods, but keep it stealth. These cars, they had those sticks, they had 4-speed. You could put a 6-speed in there and just leave the same shifter on there. You can't tell. The shifter still say 1 through 4.
Real common version of that in Chevys is you can take a Chevy from the 60s or whatever, and you can put a modern LS series motor in it. There's even a bracket I think you can get so it sits correctly in there.
Yeah. I mean, that has to be acceptable just because the price of LS, as I understand. However, if you got a lot of money,
if you're Joe Rogan, there's no excuse. You should just be. You can pay somebody to fix that shit for you. Just drive the original OG.
Yeah,
do these people know how to have fun with their money? It doesn't seem like it.
And here's what they really need to do. Joe Rogan needs to take that Corvette that he's done stuff to and put it next to one that's restored original. And this will cure you this, because you'll say in by themselves, those big rims I put on them, like those rims do look cooler than stock 63 Corvette rims, but it doesn't look, but put together, it's not as cool as it was. Anyways, the other thing that you can do is mod a car like they did back then. That's okay. But they didn't do much back then, but you know, they put the ass end up in the air and stuff like that. Anyways.
Yeah, or if you want to put a spoiler on, but a spoiler that's appropriate for that period, you know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. Or like I also think T-buckets are fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's an like, I don't know enough, but I've heard this, that like in the late 60s and the early 70s, this doesn't totally make sense, but I've heard this, that like if you were a hot rodder and you went to drag racing and stuff, like, yeah, there were guys that bought new, you know, that would do like new Hemis and stuff like that. But the real guys had like the 32 Fords with the fenders taken off and the roof chopped and stuff.
Yeah, that was real. I mean, they started doing that obviously in the 50s, right? That's when they started taking those cars from that era and doing that. But yeah, my understanding is that's correct, just because those cars, I mean, they were death traps when you put that giant ass engine in it, right? But the point was the car weighed like nothing because it was supposed to have a top speed of like 50 miles an hour or whatever. And then they would put what was for the era like a modern motor in it. And I mean, imagine having like a 350 Chevy motor in like a glorified go-kart. Like that's basically what they were doing, how fast that would go.
Yeah, and it's got no fenders, so they would just like, you can put whatever size tires you can find on there. Yeah. Anyways, okay.
Yeah, anyway, the Buick of Theseus debate is pretty good, but you know, they did arrest the president of the United States today. That happened. Former U.S. President Donald Trump, put an asterisk beside former, has been arrested and charged with 34 felony counts related to business fraud. The man who spent 4 years in the White House was brought before a judge on Tuesday and pled not guilty to all charges. My first question about this, Fredo, like, he was charged with like 34 counts because every time he wrote a check to Cohen, that's a felony charge. Is that how this works?
Yeah, I mean it's tenuous. So the idea was falsifying business records in New York is a felony only if done to cover up some other type of crime. That's the tricky part about this whole thing, right? The claim is that these were what are called like catch and kill stories. In other words, he was cutting these checks to kill negative stories that were going to surface.
Some of them were fake, by the way. At least one of them was somebody who was lying, but he paid them off anyway because it was better to not have the story in the news.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think that's even an unusual thing. What makes it weird are a couple things. Number one, the underlying crime was that it was one of two things. A, that it was an it's not specified, by the way, in the indictment, which one of the two things it is. It just says something like underlying crime or anything like that. And they asked Alvin Bragg about it today, and he said, "Oh, well, we're not required to specify, at this point in the process." So, I mean, it was either A, like a violation of federal elections law, or B, going back to the old thing that they could never make stick, that it was doing something with intent to influence the outcome of the election, which doesn't even make sense how that law would be enforceable. But it is a thing that exists. I don't know that anyone's ever been tried under it, but it is like an actual thing that exists. So the idea here is that each one of those payments was done, either to quote unquote falsifying a business record to influence the election, or that was a violation of federal elections crimes. So even like the other interesting part about this, despite the fact that the underlying crime that it was done to cover up, which is a necessary factor to make it a felony, is so vague and potentially unprovable. The second part is it's unclear under New York law whether, if the crime in question is federal that it was used to cover up, whether the New York law even applies. That's an open question that's never been determined by a New York court. So there's a lot of stuff going on there.
I think this shit is serious. I mean, like, if this was meant to demoralize people, I mean, it worked on me. Because I mean, this is like, this is a huge, huge flex. And like immediately my thought was, there is no Republican that is even remotely close to understanding what time it is. I mean, well, DeSantis did put forward what needs to be done. I mean, like, here's the deal. The Democrats have figured out they have something very powerful at their hands. First, Soros figured out the DA bit, which was genius. Which, I mean, you could control a city if you can control the DA. That was step one. That was like, damn, we can make sure no one goes. We can sort of make sure let people let people do whatever they want, etc., or make them not face legal consequences for doing stuff. So I could have you go burn a house down, and if this guy's about payroll, he could just start charging. That's step one.
And just for the record, Alvin Bragg, the DA who's charging the president of the United States with these crimes, was somebody that George Soros funded him.
Yes, and now step two, maybe step 2.5. I mean, maybe step 1.5 is that the judge is like a guy that takes every dollar he makes and donates to the Democrat Party. But step 2 is realizing, okay, so like that's the power to not charge. I mean, to not go to jail, to not charge. Then they realized but we could also charge people, take them to a jury in either DC or Manhattan, and we could just win frivolous cases against Republicans whenever we want. This is serious steez, and I haven't heard in all like I'm seriously like every second that I hear this, like, well, as the shoe is on the other foot, well, this would never, like, the thing, the hypocrisy thing like that, like, I'm done with that. Like, seriously, like, there's like, this is the thing about talking about hypocrisy. And by the way, this is also talking about the viral video thing.
Mm-hmm. Here, let's throw out this little stat here, and other people. I mean, this is even made it to Fox News level talking point, right? Bragg has served a year and some change as a DA, I think. His first 2022 was his first year. He reduced more than half of the felony cases to misdemeanors. So if you committed a felony in New York, he busted the felony down to a misdemeanor to get you less time in prison. And he famously charged that bodega worker, tried to charge him with murder. There have been multiple cases in New York City where somebody defending themselves they were going to charge them with murder, and usually they had to stop because of outcry. So like the idea here is like we've touched on in narco-tyranny before, the idea that you have these two separate legal tracks. You have one for, I don't want to say, like, people used to say the underclass, but not really. You're for your friends, and they're allowed to rape, murder, mug, do whatever, and you're going to do whatever you can to keep them out of jail. And then the other one is for your enemies, who will every law will be, you'll use every avenue to go after them, no matter how tenuous, no matter how piddly it is. And we were just talking with Samuel Urban, the illegitimate scholar, the other day. There are so many laws on the books that you can be violating federal or state law pretty much multiple times a day and not even realize it. But the thing is, if there's a guy like Alvin Bragg, whose job it is to figure out how to put you in jail because you're his political enemy, you're never safe, ever. And meanwhile, the guy who's carjacking you is going to get a slap on the wrist. Like, this is the most basic idea.
Yeah, I said something today to this effect in a different context, but you have to understand that, like, if you live in Florida or pick your state, whatever, and let's say you have to go to New York or DC or Boston or San Francisco for work. When you're there, you have to change your perception that you're in a foreign country that's hostile to you, and you need to stay out of trouble, because if you get into trouble, there's no like legal protections that you have. There's no due process. It would be like you rabble rousing in Beijing. Like that's how like you have to look at it when you're in those places. In fact, you'd be safer in Beijing as an American, because you actually would have the U.S. embassy trying to protect you. Then nobody's going to come save you in New York. So like, I mean, I don't want to overstate the issue too much, but like you need to really watch your P's and Q's when you're in those places, and you should stay out of them as frequently as possible. Now, the white pill is there's a huge opportunity here. Places like Florida and Texas or whatever can, on a broader scale, the more this goes on, just stop extraditing. And then that's a serious change in the constitutional order. That's a real exercise of power, and that has the potential to, snowball in other directions in terms of getting some of these places not being really under federal control.
This is what we have to do. This and like,
well,
go ahead. Go ahead.
I just want to make a small point about this. This is the problem, and there was a like not viral, but kind of viral in our sphere tweet about the extradition, and I tweeted what I have said here on this podcast before. That they created the Justice Department to allow them to do stuff like this, which is like, even if we stop the extradition, even if Florida stopped extraditing people to New York, the other example, the other guy we're going to talk about later, the guy who got arrested and tried and convicted for the memes, they can still send the federal police to come and get you in Florida, and Florida cannot cooperate with the FBI, but the FBI comes and decides they want to arrest me. It doesn't really matter if the governor of Florida doesn't like that. They're going to do it unless he's going to send state troopers outside my house to protect me.
What happens when ICE calls Portland and said, we want to go pick up this guy that's in your courtroom right now?
Yeah. But I mean, I get what you're saying. Yeah. The problem here is you're at a permanent disadvantage when you do not, here's the thing. ICE is a federal agency, but the people who run the federal government don't particularly like ICE or want to help them do the job that they are ostensibly there to do. But this is a permanent. If you don't control the federal government, and we don't, and we pretty much never have, you're at a permanent disadvantage, because there's this extremely powerful, rich, and organized entity that has legal jurisdiction over everything, that can just come in and just pluck you out. Now, on the other hand, that's if they had to do it that way, that would, let's say you want to arrest your political enemies with the FBI or what, ATF, whatever, you could do that, but that's really labor intensive. It wouldn't take long before you have created so many political enemies that you functionally couldn't do that as well. But my point with this is, this might be the start of something, but it could get a lot nastier than people seem to realize. It has to. And so, like, the extra Michael Lind, who we've interviewed in the 90s, said that like he said jury trials were like, jury trials made sense before, but it's not going to work anymore. And he basically said it because the same way white people would not convict the white murderer in the South, he said that basically urban ethnic people are doing this now. And that was in the 90s. Well, we've had a long time. And I mean, if you go up, if these people are hip to this stuff. I mean, if you like, there's the thing about the video of like the ethnic kid beating up the white kid. Like the last time someone that was posted, like the quote tweets were just like, well, I guess white kids can't fight. The thing about this is like, why does that not really help? And I don't think it helps, because
the idea is that, hey, look at this. There's this big injustice. So, hey, you big guy, come over here and help us fix this. Or if not big guy, reasonable, moderate people. Hey, you reasonable, moderate people, come in here. Look at this big injustice. Look at what this crazy DA is doing, which also works in this case. That shit's over. It's over. This thing where you say, hey, look, what this guy is doing is injustice. This is not like, this does nothing. This does nothing. There's no person to appeal to in all that you're doing. See, this is like, I love the example of doing this in China because, like, imagine you were an American, you got your way into Soviet Union, and they just nabbed you and took you to jail, and they said that you did a bunch of things. There's nothing that you can do where you're like, hey, look at this. This is bullshit. This is bullshit. These guys aren't treating me properly. Well, of course they're not. And this doesn't work that way. And so we have to go to the next level. It looks like a few people, DeSantis offered it. Now that couldn't work because these guys are running in a campaign against each other. I understand that, but
well,
and it also couldn't work because it was, even if DeSantis hadn't done, like, whatever, if he had declared concurrently, emphatically, that he wasn't running for president, it didn't matter. Trump still wouldn't have done it. The photo op, he's gonna use it for fundraising and a bunch of other stuff, which is primarily what Trump cares about.
Well, yes, and here's the thing. You just saying, like, the thing, and I talked about this a little bit on Twitter too. Trump can't run for president and hide in Florida from extradition. You can't do both of those things at once. They're mutually exclusive. But because if you do that, and especially if you hide under the protection of your main rival in your political party, you can't be the nominee. You can't run for president while you're hiding out in the state, and you don't want to give that power to your political rival. So, like, he was always gonna go do this. The big difference here is, like, there are a lot of people today who, like, they're very, very sure about what's going to happen. And I would love to, like, tell listeners, like, I can tell you exactly how it's going to play out, but I have no idea. Because, like, this is such it's not just that it's unprecedented. There's just a billion different ways this all could go out. Like, a judge, like, legally, Fredo, the judge could throw this case out, right?
Yeah, actually, there's a pretty strong likelihood of that the statute doesn't even apply to Trump's situation, because even if he committed the crime, it was federal, and that doesn't fall under the rubric of falsifying New York business records, in relation to a New York crime.
Here's the problem: if you're Alvin Bragg, you've escalated this to where you charge the former president of the United States, something that's never happened in the history of our country. 250. How many years? It's been since 1776, right? It has never been done before. It's been considered, but nobody ever pulled the trigger. You've escalated to something big. This is going to be in the history books. So now, if the judge throws this case out, that's going to look really, like, saying it's going to look bad is kind of an understatement. That would almost be a historic humiliation, and you do that, and that's probably. Do we think that is a political W for Donald Trump if this case gets thrown out?
Everything's a W for him from now on. I mean, unless he, like, literally is put in prison, and actually can't run because he is incarcerated. Everything from here on out is just a colossal, huge W for him. A big part of the motivation for this, by the way, was very obviously that the Democratic Party wants him to be the nominee. But to your point, though, I don't know that if it does get thrown out, that it is, like, I don't think it matters anymore because the number of persuadable people is just too small. Like, the people that think this is a good idea now, if it gets thrown out tomorrow, are still going to think it's a good idea. They'll just think they'll come up with a reason that some corrupt judge did something bad or whatever. It doesn't matter. The television can just make up something. It doesn't matter how ridiculous it is. The television makes it up and broadcasts it. And if you're a Democrat, you're going to believe it. And if you don't think that's the case, think about the stuff that the television says about gender and children and what you would have thought about if I told you, hey, this is what the mainstream Democratic Party is going to believe because TV told them to. If I told you that 10 years ago, you would have said I was crazy. Look where it is today. So I don't think that actually is a humiliation for them, because it's just their people will believe it. Doesn't matter whatever story they tell. They have uncritical buy-in. Now the other, but what it does do is it may embolden, to use the MTG term, like national divorce type stuff. And I don't mean so when Marjorie Taylor Greene said that, I mean, she clarified to say she didn't mean a literal dissolution of the country. She
Well,
meant,
that's illegal. Do you mean that? Yeah.
yeah.
The peanut cow.
Yep, exactly. And I don't mean a literal dissolution of the country either. I just mean state SIGTOW, states going their own way, if you want to call it that. But like,
States
while
taking what they can get.
yeah, exactly. Or maybe a one America policy, kind of like we have a one China policy with Taiwan and China. That certain regions of the country become like Taiwan to the federal China. You know what I mean? I don't know, something in that direction, just increased levels of freedom from the federal government, I guess, on a broad, to put it broadly.
Well, okay, then you're this is like the good ending version. You're saying, yeah, the judge throws this out, and everybody kind of not really goes back to neutral corners, but that would be like the judge throwing this out would de-escalate the situation. I think there's a chance that doesn't happen, because do you want to be the judge? Like, this guy is, I believe his daughter worked for Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. He's a true blue Democrat in New York. Does he want to throw out this case? Well, he could do that, but that could cause him problems too. Maybe he wants to see Donald Trump go to jail himself, so he doesn't throw the case out. At that point, I mean, if it doesn't take much for him to escalate the situation to the next step, which is,
why wouldn't he want Trump to go to jail?
Well, there are a lot of reasons why.
Have you been on Wine Mom Twitter today?
Yeah, I'm saying you don't know. Like, if the roles are reversed and I hated Donald Trump, I wouldn't want my political party to be doing what they're doing right now.
You got to fix that mindset.
You don't let me finish. Not because I think like this is not good, because this is going to erase our norms. Like, if you're going to do this, you need to make sure that it's going to stick, it's going to work. The person's going to be in jail. You have to you come at the king and you best not miss. Like this seems extremely weak. Like, the case seems extremely weak. There are too many things that could happen that could fuck it up.
Counterpoint. Do you know when the next hearing is?
January, right?
December. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, this is gonna. I don't know how the scheduling exactly works, Fredo, but it sounds like they're going to be doing a lot of stuff during the primary season, right?
Yeah, which again is to Trump's huge benefit, colossal benefit. That's a boon to his campaign. Like, he should send Bragg a gift basket. But despite this being a terrible, it's an outrage. It's a terrible thing. I don't mean to downplay that. But here's a counterpoint to your point, though, Merrick, about if it's thrown out, like, the embarrassment part. No, because it's still communicating that even to people like you or me that, if they don't have a good case at all, they could still make your life hell and keep you in court for years and bankrupt you with legal fees. Like, it's not going to bankrupt Donald Trump with legal fees because he's a billionaire, but it would bankrupt you or me. Right. So I think that message gets across. Maybe I'm thinking too many steps ahead, but I think that message does get across to people like, hey, if I screw with these people, it doesn't matter how flimsy of a case they could possibly just pull out of their ass. They can make my life miserable.
Yes. And that's a great point. I get what you're saying, Bog Beef, is like, yeah, you should just be pressing the gas pedal at all times. There's no downside. And in one aspect, that's true. Like, yeah, the number of persuadable people has shrunk a lot, especially when it comes to Trump. There's probably nobody probably no subject in the country right now that has a more solidified breakdown of like for and against than Donald Trump. But the thing is, this was really close. It was a really close election in 2020, even with all the stuff that happened. You don't necessarily like just throwing this shit at him, having him on trial, that's gonna scare some hoes. That's gonna scare some people away. They'll be like, "Well, I just can't. I just can't. But I'm really not happy about the way things are going. But I just can't vote for this man because he was on trial. He's corrupt. You know, there will be people who say that, and then you can say that doesn't matter because the election's going to be fortified or whatever. And maybe that's true. But if that's the case, then they have no reason to do this in the first place. If they are supremely confident that they have their election fortified, then you just let him run and embarrass himself again.
Well, no, because sorry, Bog Beef, but just very briefly, there's a margin of fortification. Like they can only fortify so much. You know what I mean? I think so. I think they still do worry about stuff. Sorry, Bog. No.
There will be some this will help him in the primary. Obviously, like people, there are a lot of people who were saying, "Well, I was for DeSantis before, but now I got to get behind Trump," and whatever, that could be true, but this could very well possibly hurt him in the actual election because there are still people who listen to the TV who might have voted for him in 2016, who won't vote for him in 2024 because of this. I don't know what that number is. And if it matters, but that number's probably bigger than the people who would vote for him because of this. Like they say, you can't arrest your political opponents. I'm against Joe Biden now. I think the number of people who would it's easier to chase people away from Trump than to chase them to him by doing this. Does that make sense?
Yeah. By the way, I'm going to be in a debate Thursday.
What's it about?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say. Well, I think it's immigration. Yeah, I think I wasn't told.
I know which side you're going to be on this debate, huh?
Yeah, I'm going to be anti-immigration. Should be a lot of fun. But anyways, back to this. Okay, so the reason why the thing about, well, should we do this? Should we do that? Well, the Democrats, there is no central thing that there's no mother brain that says, is this trial good for us, the Democrat mother brain, or bad for Trump?
Right.
There's just a lot of people. This guy, it's good for him. He's on TV. You could tell he just got a fresh haircut for you. He went on TV, got a new suit on TV. That's good. He
went down to the big and tall shop and got him a nice size 50 suit.
Yeah. I'm sure in his mind, he's a guy, he's thinking, I'm going to do this, get some good press. I'm going to show I'm tough, and maybe I'll have a shot at governor or something like that. And that goes for a lot, especially with the Democrat Party, which is more dispersed. And now the thing about the dirty tactic stuff, the way to do this for the Republicans, I think DeSantis has showed some of this. The way to do this is that Republicans can't be like Democrats where like in Philadelphia where like all these people were there to cover up the windows and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's wrong. That's not how you could do with the Republicans. What you need is, I'll take care of this for you. These governors need to step up and say, we'll take care of this. We have guys on payroll and we'll take care of business for you. You just need to send us money, give us some votes, join the club, come out, buy an autographed coffee mug, stuff like that, get involved, but we'll do the dirty stuff. And that should be that's the way the Republican Party needs to think about the future if they want to have a future. It's the only way to go forward, because you can't do 90s stuff anymore. There's no one to appeal to. You can never say, look at this, these guys are being dirty dogs. Because all this does at this point is tell people, like in the Soviet Union, nobody, like all these people in the Soviet Union, nobody thought that like, well, Comrade Stalin is a real decent ruler, but I could be convinced if you showed me. No, they were scared. And these people, and that's what the Democrats are doing. Democrats are scary, and they know if you say something about Bud Light representatives or white people or stuff like that, they'll fuck you up. They will mess you up. Sorry. And that works. It works. And we're past the point where you just, well, we're the sweeter, where the Republicans will say, we're just the sweeter people. We're just the nicer guys. We're such a nice guy. And why don't the people love us? Why don't all these professionals love us? We're so nice and fair, but you love these jerks. Why are you like this big jerk, like the Democrat Party? Because that's how people are. Thank you.
Okay. So there are a couple different, like there are levels of what can happen. The lowest level, the least escalation, the softest is what we said earlier. The charges get dropped, and this just joins the 2 impeachments and all this stuff, and this basically doesn't really become a factor at all politically later on. That's possible. I don't know. I mean, that really comes down to the judge, and maybe I guess how people receive it, because that political party they have their ear to the ground, not to what regular people think. They don't care, but what their cast thinks. And if they're not sure about this, they might drop it. Second stage would be you are going to have a trial, and you're going to send his ass to court during the presidential campaign, not during the primary, during the presidential campaign, so that you make the entire campaign about him being a lawless villain. And he might literally have to be in court and not out on the campaign trail. I don't know if we looked around, things aren't going great for Joe Biden. People aren't necessarily very happy. He's like underwater opinion wise. Things are shitty. It would be really nice for him to be able to just not have to deal with that at all, and everything is about Donald Trump being a criminal. The third level is the shit hit the fan. Sorry, the S hits the fan level. That is their intention, and they will probably succeed if they really want to do this, is to literally put him in prison, to have him sit in front of a New York judge and a New York jury, and put him away for a couple years. You wouldn't have to put him away for he could get up 136 years. He's not going to do that, but you don't need to. You put him in jail for 2 years. That's enough. You've won if you do that. It was as far as the election is concerned.
Yeah, let me. Sorry, and it would be state prison, so it's not going to be like the type of prison where Martha Stewart went for white collar criminals. I mean, he would, if you put him in prison for 2 years, he'd be dead in 6 months. Well, I don't mean to sound too morbid, but that's what would happen.
Well, he's a former president, so he gets Secret Service protection. So I don't know how that would even work.
Does he get it in prison? I don't know the answer to that question.
Well, no one's ever considered it, because there was never any point where somebody's like, "Hey, what happens if we throw the president in prison?" No, we don't think that way, because that's not how we do things.
I don't think the federal government's gonna. I think they'll find any excuse they can not to get him that, and I think he'll die very quickly. They would feel like they would get such a huge W out of him dying in prison. Like a man dying in prison, that's like one of the worst fates you could have, right? Like that's that you've been broken. So they would find a way for him to very quickly die. I mean, honestly, he might. I mean, we know they murder people in prison, right? Like they did it to, Epstein, and that's not unusual. So I don't even know if they would even have to do that, though. He's an old man. If you just threw him in general population prison, I don't think he'd survive very long.
I'm sorry, I have to cut in here because we've talked about this dynamic before, which is that, if Daddy is a calm guy and like he raises his voice at the dinner table, everybody's like, "Oh, whoa, everybody shut up. Daddy's mad. Daddy, there's something's going on." Fredo just said they're going to put the president of the United States in jail and kill him. Usually that's not stuff that's coming from Fredo. That's like, that might be coming from Rod Serling or Macho Man, not his the Principate, the Augustus. What would you put the odds of that happening at, Fredo?
I think it's more likely than not the case is either going to be thrown out or he won't be found guilty, or you know what I mean?
Right.
If he's convicted, I would say I think like almost 100% that he's going to go to jail. And then if he goes to jail, I would say almost 100% that he dies in jail. But the issue is, I don't think it's going to get to the point of a conviction.
Jerry the King Lawler's son was killed in jail. He went there for like a DUI, and next morning he was dead. Okay, so let's look at this. And by the way, that was in the jail, not prison, jail. Okay, so let's look at this situation. Remember, like you gotta go to Soviet Union, not to the United States. But let's just start here. What's to stop it? So, okay, he goes back to court. What's in the way of him going to jail and getting shivved by a thug in prison? Okay, well, first thing you got is a judge. Well, this judge donates every nickel he has to the Democrat Party. This guy is like a psychopathic
turbo lib
fanatic. The thing is, these people care more about the Democrat Party than any of us could ever care about the Republican Party. It's not the same kind of thing. Okay, but that's the judge. So, okay, but we got some other things going on. Well, let's go to the jury. Well, it's a jury of your peers. Well, it's not a jury of your peers. It's a Manhattan jury. And if you do a random call in Manhattan, and if the prosecutor is any good, he can get 12 people on there that sit around. By the way, like, I don't know if you guys heard, but it's really expensive. And you can't be a felon, right? If you want to be on a jury. Yes.
That depends on the state, I believe. So I actually don't know the answer to that in New York.
Well, Manhattan is really expensive. Like, I didn't really understand, like, people lived in Manhattan for a while. I thought that you drive to Manhattan to go to work.
Not many people do, by the way, live in Manhattan. I mean, it's all relative, but it's only a little over like 1 million people live in Manhattan. But when compared to like almost 9 million live in New York City writ large, right? It's Brooklyn and Queens have a way like double or triple population of Manhattan.
The breakdown is really bad for him too. It's going to be we lost Bog Beef. It's going to be rich people who hate him, and the other group of people who live in Manhattan are like poor minorities, right? Is that still how it works?
There's actually very, very few of them. Way uptown they live, like Washington Heights and North. The amount of areas where they live that are within Manhattan is rapidly shrinking, or has been rapidly shrinking. I don't know about that today because of how weird stuff has gone there over the past like 2-3 years, but people doing crimes in Manhattan typically live in other boroughs. Not always, but usually.
Let me read. I want to read something from Victor Davis Hanson just to set the stage here. I like what he wrote. Don't agree with all of it, but here's the end part of it, the important part. All this is predicated on a simple premise. Were the opposition to match tit for tat these democratic means, and in his means the means of the Democratic Party, throwing your political enemies in prison, then the Republic would quickly descend into a spiral of illegality and chaos analogous to what ended the late Roman Republic. They know this. In other words, the left is saying to America something along the following lines. We are so morally superior to you that we can and must employ any means necessary to achieve our unpopular political ends. But you cannot respond in kind or deter us by mimicking our own tactics, because should both parties do so, the resulting disorder would undermine the Republic, and that's something that you won't dare do. And this is a good point. What he's saying here is, one party saying, I'm going to go buck wild. I'm pulling out the gun, and I'm going to shoot us both if you don't give me my way. And will the other party back down and say, okay, yeah, you got me. I don't have the balls to cross the Rubicon, so you can just be in charge forever. There's nothing in the recent history of these two political parties to make you think that it wouldn't go down that way, right? Because here's the thing: what happens if they do? by however unlikely it is, he is convicted, sentenced, and sent to jail. If basically there is no response to that, then they're correct. You have complete political control over everything. If you can just do that, if you can arrest the leader of the opposition party, then it's not even a matter of questioning it anymore. You de facto you are in total control of the entire country, right?
Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, you're making you're both making good cases for why actually this could just go through to its conclusion and he goes to jail, because you're right. I mean, the Republicans have indicated at every possible turn over and over and over and over and over and over again that they're very, very satisfied just being a bought and paid controlled opposition, right? Like repeatedly over and over and over and over again. So like the question is, does anybody, it doesn't have to be at the party level. It won't be. Is there an individual who would be steely enough to like cross the Rubicon in that situation and take advantage of it? I think that's the question.
Has to be. It'll have to be an individual, because the Democrats and Republicans are like, as far as the makeup of the customers, which is what should drive the party, they're not the same. There's just never going to be like a DSA. The Republicans want a grill, and that's not the worst thing in the world. You can still operate like that. I mean, that's how, like, if you have a king, well, if you go there, if you want to get into, if you're live in Singapore, we need to learn how to grill, because you're not going to be involved in politics. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like the whole thing about monarchy is based around everybody deciding they're just going to grill. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I think like Republicans just want to grill. No, not really. And this goes back to something you said earlier about, this judge is a guy who, there are people who worship the Democratic Party like a god, and for the same reason that people worship gods, because like there's advantage in it. There's something you can get out of it. There's a powerful entity that can help you. And there is no equivalent for the Republican Party, because they just simply don't offer any of that. So it's not that like Republicans just want to grill. I don't think that's true anymore. Like certainly the people I know who are into the MAGA movement or whatever you want to call it, they're not just like, I just want to grill. No, they want stuff. They're just not getting it from this party, which basically you have to go. Like, I think you kind of got to go back to the 70s, right? You got to go back to when they did a coup against Richard Nixon, right? And he was removed from office. His own party, like the secret police went after Nixon, and his own party cucked and agreed to help them get rid of him. And after that point, there was nothing in the Republican Party that offered anything other than a brief respite from, great society bullshit, right? They just decided we literally can't do anything, because even if you did the minuscule stuff that Nixon, by the way, was no like radical right-wing person. He got a lot of work done for the libs during his time too, but that was still too much. That was too much. This is it. If you step over this line, then you're gonna end up like Nixon almost ended up in jail. He could have. They decided not to bother with it after they made him resign in disgrace.
Well, he didn't get a bullet like Wallace.
Yeah, exactly. And the people who followed him, like Reagan and Bush, they played ball. What did Reagan like? This funny thing, because the boomers love Reagan. What did Reagan really do? He was really soft on immigration. He helped them get gun control. He lowered taxes of people who, didn't do anything good for my family. That's for damn sure. I guess he helped some of the foreign policy objectives. Right. That's it. That sounds to me like somebody they could cut a deal with very easily, right? So since then, who have we had in the Republican roster who remotely offered anything other than that the same stale horse shit we've seen for 40 years. It was Trump. Trump did it in 2016. And whether or not, I mean, God, the man has so many faults. He did not do a good job as president, either executing his plans or especially with his personnel decisions. But, you know, there was a brief 4-window period where things got a little bit better for us, for our people, you and me, Bog Beef. You know, our people, things got better for us for a little bit. That was too much.
He did stop immigration to a certain extent.
Yeah, but anyway, my point with all this is, these two parties are not the same, and it's not like I don't even think it's a matter of a conspiracy. Like we're content to be an opposition party forever. They're like a dog that's been beaten for so long it doesn't really know how to be a dog anymore. It just knows how to avoid getting kicked in the ass by angry people. And Trump was a step away from that. He was a step in the opposite direction. He welcomed their anger. We talked about this when we talked to Senator Scott yesterday. He went up on the stage and he had during the Republican primary, he had all these people booing him. They were booing him in the primary, like on the primary debate stage. That would have been the end of a political career for a lot of people, having the crowd boo you. He just looked at them and said, all these people, you know, the Chamber of Commerce paid and brought these people in. They have nothing to do with the actual Republican base. I don't care what they say. And that's an incredibly dangerous attitude to have, even if you don't back it up very well with how you actually execute the job. This is one of the reasons why they hate him. And it's one of the reasons why I could see them convict this man and put him in jail and throw away the key. Because it's like the allusions to the Roman Republic, the Victor David Hansen, you know, we're good. Like we talked about this briefly on our podcast. You know, the Gracchi brothers, the Roman reformers, the early populares. The Senate just killed them. They just had groups of people with knives just stab them to death and kill them, and that worked for a while. It worked with the Gracchi. It almost worked with Marius, but eventually this strategy fails you. You can't do this forever. But how many years could they buy if they did this to Trump? If they destroy Trump right here and right now, and nobody does anything about it, nobody's going to stand up and stop it, or even suggest how in the future you could avoid this. This could buy them another generation of being in power. And what is that worth to somebody like, you know, not Biden because he's senile, but to you know, Chuck Schumer, whoever you want to say.
Also, R.I.P. Saturnine and Cataline. Also, populace murdered by the Senate, the oligarchy.
Curse you, Cicero. Yeah, and there have been people. There's been some squishy stuff. Like here's a Vox article. I'm not going to read the whole thing because Fredo already outlined why the theory's bad. But this is a Vox.com article. The dubious legal theory at the heart of the Trump indictment explained. No one knows if Donald Trump can be prosecuted for the hush money payment to Stormy Daniels. This is by Ian Millehauser, a progressive liberal writer. They're acting very squishy. Those people are acting very squishy about this, but they're the talking heads. They don't really matter. I don't think they don't drive. Like, Ian Millehauser's not driving policy, but even some of them are kind of like, I don't know about this. Do you guys think that matters at all?
I mean, not really. It's indicative of some of the zeitgeist, right? Because like Ian Millhauser doesn't have a lot of independent thoughts, right? He more aggregates things that he hears. I don't know where he lives. I'm going to assume he lives in New York. He's the aggregate of things he hears in and around New York, right? You know what I mean? So it can be an indication of that. You know what I mean? And some of those things that he's hearing in and around New York, they do have, like, if you were to able to follow them magically to the source, they were coming from people who matter. So it's hard to say, but that's at least potentially true.
This kind of reinforces what Bogg said earlier about, you know, there's no mother brain. This is people acting. Well, I have to people criticize the concept of the cathedral in like recently, you know, that it's a bad description or whatever, but it's not, because like this is a perfect example of this. Alvin Bragg's not necessarily getting a shadowy call in the middle of the night from George Soros telling him to do this. This is just people. These are chess pieces that have been put in position, and well, not chess pieces, because a chess piece is literally controlled by a player. These are things like, you know, that they're things that have been put in motion. They're dominoes that have been knocked over. They're going to fall the way they're going to fall. This is, and maybe they don't know exactly what's going to happen either. And they should be cautioned in the sense that, all right, well, Fredo, you said this is like evidence to you that they want Trump to be the nominee. And I kind of agree with you. It does seem like they do want that because they think they have the best chance of beating him. That's what they said in 2016 explicitly. They were rooting for him to be the nominee. Hillary's campaign was not quite helping him, but close. Like they really wanted this, and they were shocked when she got her doors blown off. This whole thing could easily make that happen again. They're not sure like what this really does if you don't throw him in jail. If you just throw mud at him and it doesn't stick, he might come out of it. You know, he might slip out of it like he always does, and be stronger because of it.
It's possible, but the difference between 2016 and today is like they didn't really know how to do election fortification in 16, and they do today. So they're not going to get caught off guard like that again. And I've said this before, but the strongest possible Republican candidate is the one who is able to do, it's not quite the same things the Democrats do, but like actually have like a real tactical approach to trying to minimize at the edges where and how much of that stuff they're able to do, as well as do as much of that sort of stuff that a Republican can do. You know what I mean? And they know that he's not going to do any of that. Like, he's not that guy. He's going to rely on the magnetism of his popularity and rallies and things like that. And that's the kind of campaign I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that type of campaign in a vacuum, but like that's the kind of campaign that's easier to beat with election fortification procedures.
Yeah. So the thing about the mother brain, which by the way was a factor in Rome, the Senate was never united. With the Senate was an oligarchy, and this is why you had situations where Pompey should have been made the temporary emperor of big king, big kahuna of the Senate, but that's not how they work. That's just not how these people are wired. In the same way.
And there are a lot of, this is a great, I'm sorry to interrupt, but yeah, I've been rewatching Rome, and I've been trying, everybody DM Bog Beef and try to shame him into watching it. I was watching it, and there's, you know, the one of the big parts of the first season is the Battle of, you know, Pharsalus, where he loses the Civil War, and in real life, part of what happened was his Senate colleagues in the Senate were like, you need to fight this battle now. Otherwise, we're going to assume that you're trying to hold on to power and just, you know, ride this out and become dictator. They were scared that Pompey was going to try to do what Caesar was doing. It's like they should have all been on. If there was a mother brain, they would have been totally behind Pompey. We need to get behind this guy 100% and get rid of Caesar right now, and we'll worry about what happens next later. But they didn't. Right up until the moment they lost the Civil War the first time, they were completely on. They were on a totally different page, because they're all here. You know, they all have their own, you know, particular things that they want. Like Pompey, for example, did he care as much about Caesar's land reforms as like Cato or Cicero? There's no way he did, because that wasn't as like materially important to him as it was to them. And that is a great point. These people, like we like to think of our enemies as like united in one like large organic machine that has something, a brain controlling all the limbs, but that's rarely how it works in real life. And that's why you can have these moments where what should be a touchdown for your political faction can turn into like a horrible defeat.
also that's just not how we think. So that like
Yeah.
if Republicans were Democrats, we would make Obama the big guy, and like, well, and Obama would make the decisions. And as people like us or conservatives or whatever it is, the monarchist or whatever, one thing that goes with the which, by the way, like every military in history works like the way that we think, that the MAGA guy thinks. Like the Viet Cong had like a chain of command. And the reason why you do that, the reason why you want someone.
That's the worst example you could have picked.
No, but I mean, people think of the Viet Cong as like just random terrorists and stuff. But even them, like even that example, that's what I mean is it's a bad example. Even them, they had a chain of command.
No, well, I mean, the Viet Cong's big problem is that they were not okay. Yeah, it's just, we won't get into the weeds. Yeah.
Right. And so like the thing, like the reason, like one of the things that we like about that is that there's responsibility attached. Who was in charge?
Yeah.
You know, what happened? Someone didn't lock up last night, or you left the burners on. Who was in charge? They don't do that. That's not how they think. This is like they chop down the tall trees, etc. But if they have the oligarchy brain, which is, and like if one of
the
them
empire brain,
and like you can see this in the Roman Senate, or you can see them today. Like, by the way, the Democrats would have no problem backstabbing and throwing into shallow grave any of them. Like, it doesn't matter if you're Hillary.
100%.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're Hillary, Biden, Soros. They don't, like, that's not how they think. And this is why in the Senate, as soon as someone started advancing themselves too much, you say, wait a minute, you're trying to be a big boy. You're gonna rise above the rest of us. We don't do that, buddy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%. You hit the nail right on the head. That's exactly the thing. The whole point of it is no one's supposed to get too big for their britches in that kind of a system. And that, by the way, is why those systems are unstable, like oligarchic systems, because either you end up in a situation where no one is able to effectively make decisions, or someone does try to effectively make decisions, and then that leads to one of two outcomes. They kill that guy, or he ends the oligarchy, right, by becoming the authority figure. By the way, since I'm getting wild enough tonight, Donkey Bite 1 says the wild card in 24 is RFK Jr. beating Biden for the nominee. I don't consider that likely, but even if it were, I mean, come on, he's a Kennedy. They're obviously just going to kill him. I mean, that's like just par for the course, right? Like they do that, being a Kennedy and stepping out of line, you die. That's just what happens, unfortunately.
I know you're listening to this right now. Come and get your boy. He's getting buck wild.
Hey, I gotta grab a drink quick.
Yeah, okay. So we don't even need to go to the Viet Cong. We have our own homegrown version of this. Our Revolutionary War, right? The British generals in that war were like pretty much up until literally up until Yorktown, were like squabbling with each other, and there were moments in time where I could march down from New York and help out one of the other armies, but I'm not going to do that, because then this guy is going to become, one of the king's favorites. He's going to get his prestige and his fame up, and that's going to hurt me. So screw him. And this is how you lose wars. Whereas you could flip it around and look at, okay, what about the Continental Congress? There were people who didn't like George Washington and fight him. Like Sam Adams actually tried to get him removed as commander-in-chief at one point. But for the most part, everybody fell in behind George Washington, even if he wasn't like the best military strategist in the world. Everybody pretty much fell in line, and he became our first national hero, our first celebrity. He could have made himself king, but he didn't. And just by simply falling in behind this one figure, that made him far more dangerous than like the British Army ever could have been, because you have these little oligarchical factions are squabbling with each other. And like our good friend Lord Yarvin talks about, there was also problems in Britain at the time between the Whigs and the Tories, who maybe the Whigs didn't actually want to win the war, etc. There was really nothing like that in America. So the problem here is if you can't put yourself in the mindset of these people. When I say it's the empire mindset, that's not literally always true. Because like the Roman Empire was kind of reversed. Like they went from an oligarchy to more absolutist monarchy. But most of the time, the late stages of empire becomes this. This is just what happens. You can't really avoid it. And if you're not as Bobby like they dealt into the program, it's hard to understand how they could act. It's hard to understand how you could make. I mean, I still think it's a mistake. If I was,
no, you finish, Merrick. Sorry.
I was just if I was the mother brain of the, I wouldn't want to do this because like why bother doing this? You're already in the catbird seat. Why roll the dice here? You could just not do this and still and remain in power. Why risk it for the biscuit?
Which is like Pompey saying, hey, look, if we just wait a little bit, we'll be in a perfect situation to win. And the Senate was like, I want to be back home. My wife is bitching. We just finish it.
Well, I mean, it's funny because like that's hilarious because like they kind of in the TV show they simplify a lot of stuff. When they do that they're like, we'll be more honorable, blah, blah, we want to do this. But like in real life, what they were concerned about was, I can't let Pompey get too powerful. Like, we can't let this happen. We need to finish this war and no more dictators, and we can all go back and we can wear our togas and we can get back to the business of stealing everything. And so if you're them, it would make sense. Don't bother with Donald Trump. You probably have him dealt with anyway through fortification, right? But maybe they don't feel that way.
Something just actually came to mind when you were talking about late stages of empire in terms of like one way this potentially all ends. I mean, this could keep going on and keep getting worse and worse for a while, and we keep thinking about it in terms of like, well, it'll get bad enough that there'll be like some sort of Caesar situation, right? But there is another sort of option here in terms of way it could go, and that's something that I think it was probably over a year ago, Angela Nagel said on this show, and it could be more like an Ataturk figure, which I think would be, in our context, would be a Democrat, right? Who rose through the ranks and realized that like, this just isn't sustainable anymore. We got to wind this shit down. I'm not saying that's likely, but that's another way that all this could end.
Yeah. I mean, so I thought like, one of the things that if you go look up things people say bad about us, they say that we are people get their acceptance letter to Harvard, MIT. They turn on the good old boys, and I tell them to go become a plumber. Like that happens, right? And of course I've never thought about this situation, which by the way, like why we talked this before, like why is the plumber thing come up? The reason plumber come up is because you got to be a US citizen. So they make like way more money than any of the other person in the trades, but I'm not in the trades. But anyways, like I'm of course, like you're not like, I mean, I've never told anybody to, but by the way, like, so what if I was actually and I've seen these people give advice. The people that criticize us about this, they'll say, which I don't do that, but they'll say like, well, actually, here's what you need to do once you get accepted to Harvard. Well, you need to get into like, start reading like Evil and stuff like that, and like work under scenes for like right-wing stuff. And like, so first, I've never thought about what to say about this, but like, one of the things, like, why don't you just become like, why wouldn't you just become a sleeper? Like, wouldn't you be more effective like if you became like a big Democrat? Like, yeah. If you became if you're a super right-wing guy, you're 18 years old, you get accepted to Harvard, and you can either join the young Republicans and become like let me tell you, the chance of you being near any level of power is pretty damn low. Like, you're going to post meme stuff. There's like a 50% chance that you'll get doxxed, and then you'll be ambulance chasing for no money. You know what I'm saying? Like if you actually were like, I'm like, and these people are the people that are like maximal political stuff, right? So the advice you give should have nothing to do with like personal success or stuff. It should be like, how do you start the revolution or whatever? Well, I mean, like, if this was like a video game or something, like, what you should become a sleeper agent. You should, like, you would definitely be near, like, you know what I'm saying? That's
Yeah,
exactly.
it's funny. Fyodor Tane just said what I was actually just about to say when you finished. There's a category of poster on Twitter who believes that Gavin Newsom is that. Like everything that you just said, like that's Gavin Newsom. He's just being a good soldier, escalating up, and then he's either going to be he could go either direction, I guess, the Ataturk or the Caesar or whichever the case might be, because he realizes that what the Democrats aren't doing is sustainable. I'm not saying that that's true, but like there is very much a category of poster that does claim that is Newsom. And I've even seen, I wish I could remember who it is that posts about this now, that like, oh, if you're interested in this kind of thing, all the stuff that you're talking about, Bog Beef, it's like you should try to go work for Gavin Newsom right now.
The problem with this is that political ideology doesn't really exist. If you're a school teacher and you know that the Democrats pay your bills, you're going to be a Democrat. And if you are a plumber or you're a white guy that can't get into Harvard because you're white, you're going to be a Republican. And so that's really the problem with all this kind of stuff.
Yes, it goes beyond that too. Like the school teacher is a great example because like school teachers have become insanely political. And if you're old enough, you remember there's a time when this is not true. Your school teacher in elementary school was a nice lady who got married, and she finger painted with kids all day, and she didn't really have a lot of strong opinions about anything. And why is that? Well, because she got married and she had a husband who's making a hell of a lot more money than she was as a teacher. So her fate as a human being was not tied to the fortunes of the political organization that ran the school system. She was like, Mrs. Smith was more concerned about whatever was going on with Mr. Smith. In fact, a lot of them would get married, have a kid, and quit teaching. That was a big thing that happened. Anyway, so there's that. The whole sleeper cell thing. Yeah, that's funny. And this is why, if you get accepted to Harvard and you're going to Harvard, I don't have anything to say to you because there's no point anymore. You can't, and you couldn't be a sleeper cell. It's like saying you're gonna go be an undercover agent in the bathhouse for 20 years. It doesn't matter what your intent was when you go in. By the time you come out, you're gonna be something different. And by the way, this goes for the people who are you talking about who complain about what we do. Like they've just been living in, most of them have been living in the bathhouse, some figuratively, some literally, for a long time. So who cares what they think? And yeah, this is not how any of this crap works. Political ideology can be real, but it's not the thing that drives most people. And I don't think that most people derive their values from their political ideology. It's the other way around. Like you pick this thing that fits your actual values. So this is all a push. But this kind of brings me to a point. We've been talking about Trump up until now. Trump might not even be the most important court case that we're going to talk about tonight. It might be was definitely probably more relevant to people like us.
Well, we can move on, but I do have a little short happy story I want to.
Go buck wild with it.
All right, let's go.
We make it look easy.
All right, so this is a wonderful story from last month, but we missed it, and it's important that we don't miss it. From the New York Post, by the way, who I guess I don't know, they seem to do pretty good, don't they?
The New York Post?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
They've not been so insanely left wing as all the other outlets lately.
No, that's the New York version of a conservative newspaper.
Yeah, the Post is a Murdoch publication. It's there. So in New York, there's two tabloids. The New York Post is the right wing one, and the left wing one is the Daily News.
But it's still New York, so like even their right wing newspaper is not
correct. That is very true.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, even the magazine that publishes extreme super fascist Lord Yarvin also publishes Ben Burger, so that's just kind of how the world works. But okay, so this is a wonderful story, and I need stuff like this. There was one that I was sort of waiting on my whole life. And I'm not like a bad person, but I wanted a story to happen where somebody fell into like a giant industrial wood chipper. And that happened.
I know what you're going to talk about now. Yes.
Okay, so I don't think you do.
I do.
February 27th. Wild video captures mob boss escaping from prison with bedsheet rope.
Okay, never mind. I thought you were talking about the lady who got Willy Wonka in the vat of chocolate.
Did that really happen?
Yeah,
R.I.P. by the way, but
no, I think she lived. Supposedly, it's the internet, so maybe it was somebody posted a fake article, but like she fell into a vat of chocolate when they had that horrible disaster at the chocolate the chocolate factory in Pennsylvania, and she survived. And then I don't know. This could be fake news. Please don't get angry at me. Continue. I want to hear about the mob boss escape.
So I'm just anybody wants to see the video, it's amazing. Like they have the footage of it. I just retweeted on Twitter in case you want to see it. It's amazing. So this guy, he looks, it's the most Italian looking guy in the world. He was wearing a tracksuit at the time. An Italian mob boss has escaped from a maximum security cell by scrambling down a makeshift bedsheet rope and remains on the run as officials investigate the security lapse that allowed the Don to flee. The escape of Marco Raduano from the Badu Carus prison in Sardinia went unnoticed for 2 hours because the operations room at the facility was reportedly unmanned at the time and no one was watching the security footage of the prison break. Cameras captured the tracksuit-clad reputed boss of the Sacra Corona Unita Mafia clan in southern Italy scaling down a stone wall using the rope of bed sheets before jumping to the grass and darting off. He's able to quickly scale up prison's perimeter fence, escape to freedom, the small city of Nuoro. How do you say that, Fredo?
What spelled again?
Nuoro.
Nuoro.
Nuoro. On the Mediterranean Sea off the coast of mainland Italy. The daring escape. So yeah, and he's free as a bird. That was last month. They haven't caught him. He literally made a rope of bed sheets like in Looney Tunes. And
the only thing better than that would be if somebody brought him like a carrot cake with a file in it.
Yeah, like they had to pay somebody to go take a cigarette break or something, right? Like I figure it's got to be something like that.
Okay, I here's some more breaking news. Well, it's not breaking news, from 5 days ago, but I just want to make sure that I didn't gaslight myself. Woman, on fire, falls into chocolate vat and survives factory explosion. A woman pulled alive from the rubble of a Pennsylvania chocolate factory after an explosion that killed 7 co-workers. Say flames had engulfed the building in her arm when the floor gave way beneath her. That might have been the end if she hadn't fallen into a vat of liquid chocolate. The dark liquid extinguished her blazing arm, and she was in the vat of chocolate for 9 hours until firefighters rescued her.
9 hours? It doesn't seem like it'd be that complicated to get somebody out of a vat of chocolate.
I don't know. Maybe they didn't know where she was at. That's a good question. I'm sorry, but I'm not laughing to downplay the tragedy at the chocolate factory, but that's, yeah.
Let's I got one more that's, I don't know, this kind of thing.
We make it look easy.
Mexican mafia members run profitable illegal Los Angeles casinos from behind bars. Illegal casinos in Los Angeles are cropping up everywhere from warehouses to homes, are largely benefiting incarcerated members of a prison gang called the Mexican Mafia. Which, by the way, I was reading today. You ever heard of Serranos?
Yeah, Southerners.
What all a Serranos means is that you're in any kind of gang that pays pays protection money to something. To that, I'm using a circular definition if I say pay to Serranos. But
I thought Serranos were people like from like the southern part of Mexico, like around Guatemala, and Norteños were the
Okay, so I think what it means is that you pay protection money to Mexican mafia, but I'll look it up again. But it could be all kinds of different things. But anyways, okay, Richard Velasquez, a Los Angeles County Sheriff's detective, told LA Times that casitas, Spanish for little houses, are everywhere, to be honest with you. It's hidden in plain sight. You don't know that's there until you know it's there. The casitas can bring in tens of thousands of dollars per week as people flock to the gambling playgrounds to operate electronic machines. Velasquez told Fox News Digital through his investigation, he's heard some of the gang members through running the gambling operation pulling $80,000 a week. Yeah. 140 person thing going on here. Oh, it's kind of interesting. When this was happening, this was going on in New York, and they caught. It's been a long time since I can't remember. I can't remember which mob boss they caught, but they caught him running all the same thing. These casitas, a little gambling place, and mostly slot machines. And Huey Long called up the mob boss and said, "Hey, just come to Louisiana, pay me 20%, and you can build them here. You can bring the machines here." Anyway,
it's illegal gambling, very Lindy.
Yes, absolutely. I told people I used to play poker like semi-professionally. I mean, professionally, because that's all I was doing for money. But I was just never got into the bigger stakes. I knew my limits, and a couple times, like I would mostly play online, but I would go to the casino on free beer night only. Because basically, if you play,
man, we are nailing the stereotypes. The Italian guy's like, "Hey, what's wrong with a little bit of illegal gambling?" And then the Scots-Irish guy's like, "Yeah, I only go to the casino when they give me free booze."
Bogby, you finish your story. I got another tack onto that.
So I mean, remember this time, like when you want to really play poker for money, you have to eat, sleep, and breathe it. When you're not playing, you're doing hand problems and stuff like that. You have to really be on your shit. And like the thing is, playing in a casino, the VIG is really high and it's slow. It's really slow. These boomers take forever. So it's like you need to be in a really juicy game to make money. Now, I didn't drink beer, but you could imagine these games get really juicy when everybody is drinking for free and they're getting drunk. It was so profitable because all these guys are getting loaded. So that was the only time. Now, a couple of times I went there, and by the way, I would clean up when I would go there. I remember like they would cash me out. Like I never really, it didn't get to that. Like they would cash me out. They'd give me like $4,000. And I'm in the middle of nowhere, and I'm sitting there thinking like one time I cashed out really big on these free beer night, and I remember thinking like, I need to like call somebody before I make my move to the parking lot because I am a sitting duck right now. But anyways, one of these times, like not just one of these times, these guys come up to me and say, "Hey, kid, we got a house game. You want to come to it?" And these things are everywhere. There are these little this thing ain't just Mexicans in California. There are these little games, and there is so in my hometown, like we had redneck mafia, but you didn't talk about like it was a mafia, but like, it always starts with selling football cards. That was, and like, they were rednecks. There were people in my family that did that. And they do stuff like this. This is like, first thing you do is selling those cards, but like we have these games, and like let me tell you, that's organized crime is involved. It's not just regular ass people like come in my house and we'll have tens of thousands of dollars floating around. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean that's just like running numbers racket, similar type thing.
By the way, as a nationalist, but I do not have the gambling drug in me. So I mean, I've spent untold hours in casinos. I've never done anything but play poker. It's the only thing that's actually profitable. But like, I think that poker needs like a nationalist cutout. It is just part of American culture, and it should be like misdemeanored or whatever. Selling sports tickets and stuff like that, which by the way, I've seen a lot of the people that hate on us lately have been talking about sports betting. We've been announcing sports betting for years. sports betting is a serious problem, especially for in the South. I mean, for especially football season. Sports betting is awful. It's the worst bet in the world. It's the worst bet in the world. If you like, I'm not gonna get back on that. But anyways,
Yes, sports betting's bad. It's also what's keeping a lot of the pro sports actually afloat right now. Even the NFL was in decline before they had started finally to decline before they legalized it.
turn on the damn TV and you'll see Tony Hawk or anybody sitting there saying,
Yep.
log on.
We're becoming like England, where like the point of the sports is just to bet on it, which like that's basically how things work in England. We're becoming like that. Well, I mean, they do actually at least have like the chav guys that are super into it because it's repping their small town. Like we don't even have that part of it. It's all basically just the betting.
I only accept this for highlight.
Yeah, well, I mean, highlight is designed for gambling around it, right? Like that's kind of the point. I was just going to tell you very briefly. You went a different direction with that beer story than I thought you were going in, because the way to get free stuff in a casino is you got to go in the Asian games room. Like usually casinos have a separate room for Asian people, and Asian people love gambling, so they get catered to really well. The waitresses come around 10 times as frequently. They got stuff in there that they don't have in the rest of the casino. You just got to learn their games and stuff, right? So like when I was younger, I had some friends that started getting into the casino. So at the time, I couldn't tell you how to play now, but I just learned the Asian game so I could go in that room and, just get stuff. You could get like ramen noodles in a bowl and eat that while you were playing. It was a lot more fun in there. Plus, a lot of those Asian games, like you push like 70% of the time. So like at least you're losing at a slower rate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
By the way, craziest thing I ever saw at a casino living near them as a kid was it wasn't in the Asian games room, but this was, I think it was like it was poker actually. It was in a poker room. I saw a guy pull an ice cream sandwich out of his pocket and start eating it.
The work. I don't like gambling, but I've been to the horse track at Charlestown, West Virginia, a couple times. It's okay. The most down bad I've ever seen another human being, I think, was there where I went into the bathroom to pee at the racetrack. So just keep in mind, imagine what a racetrack bathroom looks like. It wasn't a terrible place, but it's nothing like men, a lot of old men trafficking through here. I looked down at the floor and I see a man's face. And I'm like, what? Is this like a pervert? Nah, he wasn't a pervert. He was just taking a nap on the men's room floor at the Charlestown racetrack. Just laying there.
You see some real messed up stuff.
Yes, you see a lot of drunk old men. It's pretty sad. I'm not a fan of it. And something Fredo mentioned, like the I think when it comes to soccer, they do not only do they rep their thing. Like imagine if like the NFL had I don't know what. It's almost hard to even think of a city small enough for this to work. Like there are teams in the top league of soccer in Britain that have like 100,000 people. Like Leeds or whatever. It's not a big in America. What's 100,000 population city? You could, I don't know, of Scranton, whatever, place like that. Imagine if they had their own NFL team. Like for them, it is a thing where you can rep your city, and that works because like you have London, which has, I don't know, 6 teams divided into neighborhoods, and then the rest is like all the little tiny cities that are left in England. And like, yeah, you can be a real chav stuff happens. Like people stab each other and fight, and they can rep it. But there's nothing like that in America. Like no one really cares anymore.
We do have one singular thing like that, and it was kind of somewhat of an interesting thing to experience because I have been there, and that's the Green Bay Packers. And I don't even like football that much, but Green Bay is basically around that size of a city. And it's just like the stadium's just kind of in a suburban neighborhood that you would expect. The historical reason why?
Well, it's historical and material reason why the Green Bay.
Because it's like the community owns it, right?
Yes,
Like it's
yep.
it's like a community owned team. Yeah, but like it really is like that. By the way, nicest people in the world out there. Like they like if you're visiting and you're like rooting for the opposing team, like when the game's over, they'll be like that, it's I guess classic Midwest stuff. They'll be like, that was a really good game you guys played. Thanks. Have a good rest of your day. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that.
Not the experience you get in Philadelphia, by the way.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Although when I went and saw a Cardinals game in DC years ago, and I was wearing a Cardinals shirt and hat, and like I was rooting for the Cardinals. And none of the people like they were all pretty much good humored like that. I've heard stories about going to Philly or Baltimore, and it's like people will pour beer on you and try to hit you and stuff like that.
DC is like that, and I've also been to the National Stadium there. It's because no one's from Washington, DC. No one. Why would you possibly ever give it that much of a shit about it?
Oh,
like, that's why. And even if you were a multi-generational person from that area of the country, you're a Baltimore Orioles fan because there was no team in Washington forever.
Unless you were really old and you were like a Washington Senators fan.
Exactly. But they were gone for so long. Like you would have, you know what I mean? They weren't gone for like a decade. They were gone for what, 50 years or so, So, yeah.
Steve Saylor says that baseball was going to turn out to be like hooliganism and like things are in Europe. What he said was an excuse for Irishmen to get drunk and brawl, but there was a bunch of changes. This is when the American League came out and stuff, and they banned beer and shit like that. But yeah, I don't know. Red Sox games got pretty wild, and there used to be some scrapping going on. But anyways, you have another serious story you want to get to, right?
I think this is more important for people like us than even Trump getting arrested. So I'll read the headline.
We make it look easy.
Far-right influencer convicted in effort to use fake messages to try to trick Clinton voters in suppression scheme. This is a headline from the Daily Mail, which is also regarded as a somewhat conservative news outlet, or it used to be. It's another Murdoch thing, isn't right? Doesn't Murdoch own the Daily Mail?
I thought he had is it the Telegram? I forget which is which.
Yeah, so what happened, and we talked about this on our live stream, but it didn't make it to Patreon or anything. There was a guy named Ricky Vaughn back in the 2016 election, and he posted a meme that said, skip the lines and vote for Hillary Clinton by text, and it gave a text number. This is a really old joke in American politics along the vein of like, don't remember if you're going to vote for Hillary Clinton to show up on the polls on Wednesday, right? Stuff like that. And, it is a joke because there's a blue check, and I put comedian in air quotes. This lady, like Christina Wong or something, who made the exact same joke about Donald Trump, like in 2016 on the day of the election. Go vote. Go, make sure to vote. Make sure to do this to vote, and it wouldn't work. Nobody took these things seriously until they did, and the United States attorney went and extradited this man from Florida, from his home in Florida where he lives, and took him to, I believe, Brooklyn, because there was ostensibly because of the way the data centers worked or whatever, they said this is actually the jurisdiction of Brooklyn, and you can imagine what kind of jury he got. And he was convicted of the crime of voter suppression. It might have been even violating someone's civil rights. And he could face up to 10 years in prison. And just to give you an idea who this guy was, he had 58,000 Twitter followers back in 2016. So, I mean, especially inflation of Twitter followers, he would have been, probably a six-digit, maybe.
How many?
58,000.
Famously, Time Magazine rated him in the top 10 most influential.
Yep. MIT Media Lab is the 107th most important influencer with 58,000 Twitter followers. If you put ours together, we're not 58,000, but we're in the neighborhood, right? Like, we're more than halfway there if you put ours together. My point with that is not to brag about how popular we are on Twitter. It's to say that it doesn't matter how small of a fish you are. If the eye of Sauron falls upon you, They will go pluck you from your home state, no matter how base your neighbors are, and drag your ass to Brooklyn and put you on trial among a jury of your peers, who will then decide whether or not you should become a political prisoner or not.
Just for being really good at Twitter.
Yeah, like that's exactly what happened to him. And then people say, "Oh, the case will get turned over on appeal." Maybe, but I saw somebody in the chat earlier when talking about Trump saying the process is the punishment. And in Trump's case, that's not true, because he has Secret Service protection. He has a lot of money. But for us, for somebody like us, that is true. If they did this to you tomorrow, it would ruin your life. I mean, for this guy, he might be in effing federal prison for 10 years. It could happen. And nobody is safe from this kind of stuff. And this is specifically, when we say this is why, I say when this is why they created the Justice Department, I mean, kind of, but not for Trump, for everyday people. Because they can do this to you and you don't really have any recourse. And I think this is a bigger story for us than even the president becoming arrested. Because this could happen to, if you're listening to this right now, this guy could be you.
Yeah, and that goes to my point of like what I said with the Trump thing, like where even if he gets off, it still sets the example that they want to communicate that they can come get you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, unfortunately I'm not a legal scholar, but like I'm pretty sure the basis of all this is that he violated people's civil rights by doing voter suppression. I mean,
civil rights always wins.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes we get accused of LARPing or doing a bit when we talk about like Reconstruction and Civil War stuff, but it really isn't a LARP or a bit. Like these things they all stem from they all sprouted from the same seed. You literally could not separate them if you wanted to. Going all the way.
I see a lot of people start talking about these things like we talk about them.
Yeah, well, I mean, the new thing I would like to see people talk about, they're already talking about Civil Rights Act and stuff. Just start thinking about why the Justice Department exists, and not in the sense that you're to be so smart because but do we need a Justice Department? That sounds crazy, but do we need a Justice Department? Maybe the states could just go back to handling these issues.
Yeah, no, we don't. I mean, we basically don't need federal crimes at all outside of stuff like, like aiding the enemy or like crap, like, you know what I mean? Like legitimate crap like that. Not the way that's used today as like a joke. You know what I mean? But yeah, no, I mean, we don't need that. I mean, there was a time, right, when the entire federal apparatus was just funded on tariffs. That like it was a long time ago, but it wasn't that long ago. But like, we don't really need any of this stuff.
This is the key word. We don't need any of this stuff. If you're someone like us, you don't need. Not only do you not need this, it actively makes your life worse. But they do absolutely need this.
That's because it this is going to sound like lame, so like you can forgive me for being trite, but the federal government in its current form exists as a form of imperialism. It's if you want to use the word this way, you can consider it Yankee imperialism. That's its point, right? Like because it's profitable to do that for them. Like I'm not the people that are actually doing it, maybe doing it for like ideological reasons. In addition or instead of just purely like dollars and cents stuff, but there is a dollars and cents component to it. Like, like Bog Beef talks about, there's this whole like sort of apparatus where you get an email job or whatever for, being a part of this. But that absolutely is the point of it. And it's just becoming like, I wasn't obviously alive in the 1860s, but so I can't comment on that versus today, but that's becoming, in terms of like the lack of like cohesion within the 50 states is obviously greater at any time than I ever remember. Right. And I think that's what's sort of highlighting the role of the federal government in this regard. I said earlier in the show, like if you go to like these places, you were in a foreign country that's hostile to you. And I mean that. Like, since 2020, I don't go to those places. You know what I mean? Not the urban places. Sometimes I don't even like going to suburban and rural places if it's above the Mason-Dixon line. I'm gonna be honest with you at this point in my life, but sometimes I have to, right? But I definitely behave and act a different way when I'm doing that. And I think it's unfortunate, but people are going to have to start. That's going to be the hardest pill, by the way, for people like boomers to swallow, that have lived under the old system longer than I did. I lived 40 years under that, but there's a difference between that and having spent 60 or 70 years under that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you might have spent less than half of your life. We might spend more than half of our lives in this new world. I will say, before I'm glad that we're all in agreement about Yankee imperialism, but not to make light of this. I saw a tweet thread today. A guy said that he had a friend who went hunting. He went down from, I don't know if it was Vermont, Maine, whatever, one of those New England states, going back home to New Jersey after he went hunting, and he had a accident on part of the interstate that ran through New York. I think there's only a small part of the interstate that he was on that ran through it. But he said an accident was bad enough accident that basically his possessions got thrown out of his car, and one of the possessions was his Ruger 1022. Not an AR-15, not a machine gun. It's a Ruger 1022. You couldn't invent a more FUD gun. He said New York State Police or whoever went to the scene found it. He caught gun charges for his gun flying out of his car when he was in the car accident. Like in this sense, these places, they don't care how things work where you're from. They don't care about any of that stuff. If you're a tourist and you get mugged, shot, raped, whatever, you're going to enjoy their version of the legal system, not from the place you came from. And yeah, that is it's not really a hard pill to swallow. Everybody's known this their whole life. What happens is that by the nature of the beast, the way we communicate with people, especially through our social media, it's people who just live their whole lives in these places. So they're used to it, or they have to come up with cope reasons why it's okay. But if you don't live in Manhattan or whatever, yeah, you have leeway to just avoid this stuff. And you should. I honestly don't like going any place, whether it be like a geographic location or just like a place within the state, where they don't let you carry. I don't like that. I don't like that anymore. It doesn't make me feel good, because there's a vibe shift when you go into a place where it's like a sign that says no firearms allowed.
Yeah, and there's a point to this too. You made a really important point there, or at least I picked something up from it, and that's like, if you go to a place like this, like, you don't have to be like poking around looking for trouble. Trouble can come find you, and then it's your fault, right? Like, it's been made very clear that in these places, if someone assaults you and you punch them back or something, forget even shooting them, then that's even a whole next level. Even if you just punch them back, you're obviously going to get charged with assault, right? Like, for something even that mild, like, that's 100% happening, because you're an enemy of these places. People are going to think I'm saying this in a hyperbolic way, but I'm not. Having been to like a lot of quote unquote authoritarian countries. So I'll use an example, Havana. I've been to Havana many times. I would feel way less anxious about spending a week in Havana than I would in New York City, because the government in Cuba doesn't really have much of an interest in me as long as I'm not trying to overthrow it. And if someone does a crime to me in Havana, of which there's very little, like, their ass is going to jail. Like, they don't screw around. They don't have this concept of like, oh, like, it's not the criminal's fault. You know what I mean? It's real. You know what I mean? These are foreign concepts in places like that. So, and I mean this in a literal sense, I would feel much safer being in Havana, Cuba, than New York or San Francisco if I had to spend a week someplace.
I want to do something. My favorite podcaster, radio guy of all time, Adam Carolla, he had this thing where occasionally he would give out the cranberry sauce recipe, but he also had lots and lots of callers on his show. Love Line would be teenage girls with creepy stepdad getting loaded and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And he would tell them and he would tell them how to install a barrel bolt on their bedroom door. He says, you got to install this barrel bolt on your bedroom door. Stepdad or mom's boyfriend don't know how to, more than likely, he just won't come in. You get the barrel bolt. Well, I would like to pass on this tradition in a different way. I know, judging by the limited metrics we get of our listeners, that what we just said does not include maybe even the most of our listeners. Lots of people listening to this right now, living in New York City on the grind, trying to get their paper up somewhere like that. You got to do what you got to do. You might not be able to get a job nowhere else. A lot of stuff is like that. So what can you do? Which, by the way, if you live in one of these places, so I mean, all three of us are gun nuts. We carry a gun anywhere we can go. I wouldn't advise that for you, even if you could. But here's what you should do. And this is the legality of this is not like, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm telling you to break the law anyways, because you'll be fine.
No, we are not telling you to break the law, actually. This is parody for entertainment purposes only. We are not telling you to break the law. Continue, please.
Exactly. But I mean, this is kind of like in between New York City, but here's what you should do. Amazon, and they might have some kind of way to restrict it by your location or whatever, but you need to buy Sabre, S-A-B-R-E pepper spray. Get the little one. There's a little one in a flip top cap. There's a flip top cap. It's $10. It's $10. Sabre get the little, it's so small. It just slides right in your pocket and nobody would ever see it. It just slips in your pocket. Get that. Get the practice one. It looks exactly the same. It's a different color. $6. It's $6. Take the practice one out. Give it a few shots. Get the idea of how it works. That's how you're going to defend yourself. Somebody fucks with you. You're downtown New York or whatever. Give them or one of these damn dogs. What are these dogs that's eating all these people?
Pit bulls.
These pit bulls.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, a 300-pound thugosaurus or a pit bull, doesn't matter. You give them a shot of this. You give them a shot of this pepper spray. They ain't coming. You got some time to get away. You got some time to get away. And if you shoot somebody, you're going to go to jail. You don't want to shoot them if you live in one of these places. And by the way, you don't want to, I would generally not shoot somebody unless they're in my house. Or you can drag them in there after.
Yeah. I mean, because we've talked about it on the show before, but like, you're going to have a lot of legal problems, even if you shoot someone rightfully. Right. Like I almost more, honestly, I mean, I think that's good advice. Also, I think even in New York City, pepper spray is perfectly legal. Don't quote me on that. Do your own research, but I think it is.
Well, from what I knew somebody, I gave a girl this advice, and it was illegal for her to buy it where she was at, but she could carry it. It's like you couldn't buy it in the borough, whatever. I don't know what that is, but whatever. Your parents are not, and get it shipped to your parents' house in Ohio or whatever. But get that little Sabre stuff. That stuff will put somebody down. I mean, you can get away. You get them a shot of that. You'll be completely fine.
Hope y'all are listening on Twitch and YouTube, because ain't no way this is making it into the Patreon.
Well, most of it. I mean, I would leave in the stuff about the pepper spray.
Yeah, I mean that's
probably not the part about dragging the body inside.
That's an old joke.
I know it is, buddy.
Yeah. But yeah, that's basically it. That stuff will protect you, but you got to try it out, because by the way, this is the reason why it can take down someone's 300 pounds, because it's some bad shit. You don't want to spray that in your face. You want to make sure you get the practice tube and figure it out. It's got some decent distance. Even the little bitty one, even if your little girl got wearing the skinny jeans, you can flip it right in your pocket. You never see it. And that stuff, it'll shoot plenty of distance that you'll need, and you can get your ass out of there. Thank you.
So do we have anything to shill other than your debate? Is this going to be a live stream debate?
Yep.
What day is it? Thursday?
Thursday. It hasn't been, it's the kind of thing that someone else is hosting it. So I don't know if I can announce, however, but I'll certainly have details tomorrow on my Twitter. But
Stay tuned to Bogby's Twitter to find out more about this. It's always fun. The last one, I watched the last one, and with the AI waifus, and that was pretty entertaining.
picked up the W last time. Let's see if I can go 2-0.
I mean, I guess everything depends on the rules of the debate, but it seems like it'd be hard to lose a debate about immigration. You know, it seems like it'd be really hard.
I mean, going by Distributist, who really is the master of these debates. I don't know if I should spill the beans or whatever about the debate thing, but winning the debate is picking the whatever the word is for the question.
Right. The premise, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Which, yeah.
Anything to shill, Fredo?
Nothing, man. Never. Not a shiller.
Fredo went hard in the paint tonight. I mean, he's usually the level-headed one, but tonight he was doing some Fed posting. I really enjoyed that.
By the way, my local gun shop, I haven't been down there, my arms list. They posted this beautiful, like 70s blued Chief Special revolver, snub nose. I can tell if it's 38 Special, 357, but probably 38 Special, but like just a little snub nose Chief Special, whatever. I was like, I really like that.
Put that in an ankle holster, right?
And well, I think you do that with the aluminum, the air weight or whatever. The steel one, maybe not so much, but I guess you could. But anyways, so I was like, well, I don't know. By the way, I don't have any revolvers. So I was like, my dad's got some revolvers. So I'm gonna go grab my dad. So my dad's got like one of these old, like these 60s, 50s, Model 19s, Smith & Wesson blue. And I was like, I'll see what, and like, I took it home to sort of play with it, cycle the action, cock it, stuff. It's a work of art.
Yeah.
I mean, in single action, you breathe on the trigger and it fires. And the double action is just glad. I mean, it's just so smooth. These things were just like unbelievable.
You gonna go pick it up, man?
I don't think so. I'm gonna get the cheetah.
Gotcha. I was gonna say, your revolver story reminded me. Like recently, I was looking at some like just like statistics about like encounters, right, where people like fought off their attacker, and there's like data on like what caliber they used, right, and like whether or not they were successful. A substantial, like, well, not substantial, but more people than you would think, like, were actually like in a concealed carry situation with 44 Magnum, which is like that's a different level of man than I am. If you're concealing that around and carrying that around every day and having to use that in an altercation,
when you're whipping out the Harry Callahan piece.
That's a boomersaurus. Yeah. Well, let me tell you, like on my gun broker, there's only one gun I have on like the alert, like where it'll wake me up in the middle of the night and tell me to go buy this gun. And that is a Ruger Carry Hawk. You ever heard of this?
No, actually, I'm not familiar.
Like
with
a Nighthawk, but
a Carry Hawk is a. Have you ever seen the concealed carry grips that like they used in the Wild West, like the bird's head grip?
Yeah.
So it's a bird's head grip, like the smallest. So it's a single action revolver with a bird's head grip with like the shortest barrel that you have with a single action, because you still got to have the cleaning rod or whatever, or the ejector rod. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
44. I think they make it in 44 mag or 45 long Colt, which also comes with the 45 auto. Anyways, let's just talk about it also comes with the one that you can use 45 ACP moon clips. But anyway,
this is a Black Hawk that's designed to be like for like to be concealable. Is that what I'm saying? Is that what I'm saying?
So it's a super shape. So it, like, here's what it is. So you ever seen like, so the most like a concealed carry maxed out like modern plastic gun or whatever will have like night sights, shortest grip, everything will be smoothed over and stuff like that. It's that, but for a single action revolver like the Wild West. So like it's like if you were like so it has like adjustable, it has night sights, but you can remove them, but you don't ever have that on like these cowboy guns. 44 mag. It's got the like it is a it's like what like cyber cowboy would conceal carry. It is so sick.
Wait, I'll just be the wimp that says this. I don't want a gun that's small and concealable that shoots 44 Magnum. That's gonna feel terrible. Can you imagine the feeling in your hand after you fire that thing one time?
But you could do it. I mean, it would rough your hand. Which, by the way, you used to put 44 special on there.
That's I don't know.
Fucking maniac.
Yeah, 44 special. No, I was gonna say like imagine the lack of capability for you better hit that first one for follow-up shots if you're single action only and you're firing 44 Magnum out of something that tiny. Like follow-up shot, not gonna be easy.
Well, the other one is 45 long Colt / 45 ACP. But anyways, like either way, like imagine you get in an altercation. This motherfucker bolts out a single action revolver.
Do you have to fan it like John Wayne?
Yeah. But like they make like it's clearly like they made a cowboy gun for concealed carry. It is like, and it's like serious. It's like it's mint. It's got the sight. It's got the real sights on it and stuff like that. They're like, this is really like you're gonna defend yourself like cyber Wyatt Earp. It's badass. Hell yeah. Anyways.
This podcast is brought to you by Saber Mace and the new Ruger
And Ruger.
karaoke.
Yeah, Strom and Ruger Company.
All right, guys. I had a good time.
Yeah, me too.
Good night, y'all.
Have a good night.